Om Shanti. A very warm welcome of peace and a greeting of peace to my sisters and brothers, especially to my sister Liz. I've just returned from Mount Abu, and this time Mount Abu happened to be a time of a lot of meetings and various retreats. But even within that busy time, the early morning hours always provided that space of stillness. And not this time, but in times gone by, when I've had the opportunity to go for walks on the mountains there, sometimes you see birds moving across the horizon, and then it seems as if they're not even flapping their wings anymore. Literally, they're in that space of stillness, they're in movement, but you don't see any flapping of their wings. It seems that they've taken hold of a current and they're moving with the power of that energy of the current of air. And so you look at them and you see them gliding. An amazing sense of stillness, and yet within that, moving forward. And it reminded me of the journey of the soul, and how at some point we need to generate that energy, we need to flap our wings, we need to make ourselves move. But once we've reached a certain level, then you're able to just glide with that stillness. You're moving forward, you're moving on that journey, but you're not having to make any more effort any longer. And so what do I need to do to be able to experience that here and now? Far away from Mount Abu, in a world where just outside there's a lot of chaos and very little stillness. Well, it's still possible and it's still easy, because the journey is one that's in here. And the energy that's being used is not one of moving our hands and our feet, but it's the energy generated by pure thoughts. When you sit, create for yourself that moment in which you can sit quietly, let the body become still, but then further generate that awareness of who am I and what is it that there is within me. Coming to the understanding of I, that inner being, that being of light, I then come back to the awareness of my own original state of being, the qualities that are there within me. I was asked an interesting question just a couple of days ago in Abu. It was a group of about 60 people who'd come from different parts of the world for a retreat on the theme of inner peace and inner power. And the question was, well, if the soul experiences happiness and pain, which it does, then how do we say that the original state of the soul is of happiness? And many of you here will know the response, but my response to that individual was, when I forget who I am, and I come into the consciousness of the limited, the consciousness of matter, then I experience pain. And yes, it's still the soul that is experiencing the pain, but yet it's because the soul has forgotten itself that I experience pain. And all I have to do is to come back to the experience of the inner being, the eternal being, the soul, and in that experience I can go beyond pain and back to the original state of being, which is there within the soul, the quality of happiness. And so when I sit quietly, it's not just letting the mind go blank, but generating those pure thoughts of my own original eternal identity. The peace that is there within, the love and purity that there is within. And when there's peace and love, there's a state of comfort, of security, of warmth, in which there's no need for any upheaval. When there's truth, when there's joy, there can be stillness also. Without this, in falsehood, there'll be many thoughts, many waste thoughts, many negative thoughts. But I move towards truth and I come to a state of stillness. And so returning to the original qualities of the self, sitting quietly, in silence, but the mind functioning, moving, but using all these thoughts, moving in the direction of truth, I come to a point of stillness. In that stillness, I can experience the presence of the divine. And as I experience God's love, the peace that emanates from the Supreme, in that state, that warmth and that comfort surrounds me and protects me and makes me totally calm and quiet. And the stillness of God's peace is what has been described as the peace which is beyond understanding. And what I feel that to be is that it's not a theoretical explanation or understanding, but coming to the awareness of the self, experiencing the link with the divine. It's beyond the theory of understanding, and it's the reality of the experience of God's love and peace, and a stillness that comes through that, which is a taste of infinity, of eternity, a moment in which everything stops. I remember many moments in which there has been that experience, but one in particular, the starting point of my own journey, had happened in Mount Abu many, many years ago. And it was at that moment that, as I experienced the drishti, the vision of soul consciousness and God consciousness of Brahma Baba, it led me to that moment of stillness in which I tasted that which is eternal. And in that it was not just an awareness of the self and a relationship with the divine, but there was a third element. And that element was of the element of infinite light, a place that is completely quiet and still, beyond this world of the elements of matter, a world which is our home, a place of total purity, and so a place even without any vibration, a state in which there's just absolute stillness, our home of peace, our home of nirvana. And so our journey is to go within, to connect with the divine, and to come to that awareness of our original home. Yes, there'll come a time when I'll settle everything here, and the soul will actually be able to be in that home, and that'll be whenever it'll be. But I can have a taste of that here and now. And the more I move beyond the consciousness of the things here and experience the stillness of the eternal self and the divine and my home, the greater the capacity and the strength I have to come back here and be an instrument for peace. And I know that this is what is the deepest desire in all our hearts. I know that Liz and the whole family have dedicated so much time and attention and energy for all of this so that there can be peace in the world. And yes, action is important, but before the action, the consciousness that then determines the quality of action. And so our time for stillness is through sitting in silence, but then the result of that on the external level, in which we actually come into action, into motion, is also then filled with peace, with a stillness that's able to create an atmosphere in which others can also work with us to create peace in the world. Thank you for all that you have all done, and thank you for being with us here tonight. Om Shanti.